Hi, everyone joining us. Welcome. Hi, everyone in that chat. Thanks for using the chat. We're still getting some more people, so we'll wait just a couple more minutes, but thank you all for joining us nice and early. Oh, some of you are already answering some questions that I have for you in a poll. Thank you so much. Hi from Queens. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Looks like we're holding kind of steady, so we'll just give it one more minute. Matthew, there's no poll yet, so don't worry about that. I haven't started that yet, but thank you for asking. Hello from Brooklyn. Hello from Oneonta. Nice, Indiana, welcome. Yeah, so for those of you joining tonight, this is not a regular Zoom. This is a Zoom webinar, so you won't be able to see yourself. You'll only be able to see those of us who work at Stony Brook University in a multitude of different capacities. So you'll just see one or two of us throughout the presentation. And then there's a few of us in the background of the chat, which I'll explain in just a second. Okay. Let's see. We'll go ahead and get started. So thank you all for joining us tonight. This is Stony Brook University's Making College Affordable for All. My name is Christina LaFaso. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am a senior admissions advisor and the EOP coordinator for the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at Stony Brook. Together with me, I have a whole slew of other admission staff and financial aid staff, but I want to introduce our host for tonight, Daniela, who can go ahead and introduce herself and get us started.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Daniela Stewart, and I'm a financial aid advisor here at Stony Brook. And we're going to be going over some financial aid basics and answering any questions that you may have today.
And before we go ahead and get started, let's get those polls going. So we're gonna, you can go ahead and click on those questions. The first one is, where are you located? We want to know where you're from. Long Island, New York City, upstate, out of New York State, out of the US. The second question in there is, what's your student status? Are you a senior in high school, a junior? Maybe you're a sophomore or freshman. Perhaps you're a transfer student. And we even have some parents, guardians, and some counselors with us tonight. So make sure to check that. The last question is, how confident are you really in your financial aid knowledge? So this is where you can be honest. This is totally anonymous. We're not going to go in and see who's answering what, but this just gives us an idea of where we think you guys are in regards to your knowledge on financial aid. Looks like we have About 60 to 65% of you are from New York City and Long Island. We have a nice portion upstate. 19% of you, 65 of you, are outside of New York. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And then we do have 5 students from outside of the US joining us tonight. That's awesome. Thank you for taking the time. A huge portion of you are either seniors in high school or parent or guardian, so that we were expecting. For those of you who are transfers, make sure to ask your questions in the chat, or the Q&A, I should say, not the chat, the Q&A. Those questions can get answered if they're specific to just a transfer student if you want. And then for those of you who feel like you need all the help you can get, 72 of you feel like you need all the financial aid help. This is what tonight is for. So for those of you who think you can learn a little bit more, you maybe only know a little bit and can get by, or maybe you need all the help, we hope tonight helps you out. So thank you so much for doing that poll. Like I said, please put all of your questions in the Q&A button down at the bottom. You'll see Q&A. Don't use the chat. Let us do the Q&A. It's a better response system for us. You can put your questions throughout the presentation in that Q&A feature. Myself and all of the other staff members we have here tonight will be answering your questions throughout the presentation. And then some questions are actually going to be answered verbally towards the end once we have a little bit of time after the presentation. So don't feel like you have to hold on to your question. You can chuck it in the Q&A for now, and we'll answer as we go along. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks, Daniela.
Sure. Okay, so like I mentioned, I'm from the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships here at Stony Brook, and we're going to be going over the financial aid basics tonight. So what is financial aid? So financial aid consists of funds that are provided to students and families to help them pay for their educational expenses. Okay, so there's different types. There's gift aid, which is scholarships and grants. There's also self-help aid, which includes loans and employment opportunities. Okay. And these are some sources of financial aid. So they're from the federal government, states, college and universities. There's private sources as well, organizations such as churches or civic organizations, as well as employers, whether that's a parent employer or a student's employer. Some important things to know is that the admission deadlines and the financial aid deadlines may vary, and we're going to be going over the financial aid deadlines tonight. Tax information is needed to file your FAFSA every year. There are different forms that colleges may require. So there's the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. In addition, some schools may require a CSS profile. That's for the college scholarship service profile. And there's also the Express TAP application, and this is for New York State students attending a New York State college. Another thing to remember is that if you've experienced any kind of special circumstances when you're planning to file your FAFSA, such as a job loss, divorce, separation, someone is ill in your immediate family, or the death of a parent, you will want to reach out to your financial aid office and see the next steps for you. So keep that in mind. Okay, so what information is needed to file the FAFSA? So for the 2021-2022 FAFSA application, your 2019 tax information is needed, as well as all of your income and any kind of benefit summaries. It will ask for asset information, but not 401k or IRA balances, and not the value of your primary residence. Untaxed income will also be reported. This includes child support that is received. So these are some of the deadlines. So October 1st is when the FAFSA application became available. So it is available now for the 2021-2022 year. February 15th is our priority date, and that is for funding that is limited through the school, which we will go over. But you want to make sure that you file your FAFSA early so that you can get your full eligibility, okay? And in late March, you'll receive your award notice from Stony Brook University. So the whole process will go, you apply to Stony Brook, you complete your FAFSA, you complete your New York State aid application if you're eligible to do so, And then you'll follow up with us and provide any additional documentation that would be needed to finalize your award notification so you can ultimately make your decision. So applying for federal aid, the FAFSA website is listed here. So it's fafsa.ed.gov. You do want to make sure that you're going to the correct site because there are some fake sites out there. And always just remember that this application is free. So it should not be asking you for any kind of credit card information or anything to pay to complete the application, okay? And it is free, so it's something that you can completely do on your own. I know there are some companies out there that will say that they can help you get you some more additional financial aid, but the application is free, and as long as you have your tax information, you will be eligible to do it, and paying someone is not going to get you more financial aid, okay? Okay, so the information listed on your FAFSA, that information is used to calculate your expected family contribution. And that expected family contribution is what is determined that your family can reasonably contribute to your educational expenses. This expected family contribution is the same regardless of where you attend, okay? So it's a federal component that is made up of two items, either your parent contribution and the student contribution. Okay, so both of those are taken into account when your expected family contribution is determined. And it's through a federal formula. So again, it's going to remain the same regardless of where you go. There's the paper FAFSA application is available. It's not recommended based on the processing time. And since everything is done electronically, you'll want to do it that way. Okay. So financial need. So financial need is when you take your cost of attendance to attend a university, you subtract your expected family contribution, and then you're left with your financial need. So as we said earlier, that expected family contribution is going to remain constant regardless of where you go. So you really want to check the cost of attendance of where you're trying to attend, and that's how it will determine your need, right? So that cost of attendance can vary. So the higher the cost of attendance, the higher your need will be, right? And vice versa. So an FSA ID, this is needed for a student to apply for financial aid. So you'll actually have to get your FSA ID prior to doing your FAFSA application. This is your student identifier. So a parent and a student will both get an FSA ID, but you have to do that separately. There's also a data retrieval tool, and you can list up to 10 schools on your application for the FAFSA per application. So again, that FSA ID is needed for the parents and students, and the website here, if you it's listed, let me just move this around. So it's fsaid.ed.gov, and it's more of a secure access to user information. And each time you apply for one, it has to go to a different email address. Okay, so if a parent is applying for the student, you cannot use the same email address. You want to make sure that if you're the student and you're applying for your FSA ID, you're using your email where you will get your communications, and the same for a parent. Okay. So the IRS data retrieval tool, this will give a real-time request for the FAFSA to import your tax data. Once you import it, you do not want to make any changes, because the whole point of importing it is that so the information first is accurate, and that if we need some verification documents or we need to confirm your income, we don't have to ask for as much documentation. By using the data retrieval, we know what you put on the FAFSA is accurate and is checked by the IRS. So that cuts down on the amount of paperwork that may be required for you. However, if you import the data and then make changes, we will still need to request documentation moving forward if you're selected. The data retrieval will not work for families who filed an amended tax return, who do not have a social security number, or if your parents are married but they filed taxes separately. So some grants that are determined by the FAFSA, the first one is the federal Pell Grant. The current award range is from $639 to $6,345 per academic year. And the award amount is based on your expected family contribution from the FAFSA. So that's the indicator number that's used to award the federal Pell Grant to a student. You can get it for up to 12 semesters. Okay. There's also the SEOG grant. So these awards, they can range anywhere from $200 to $4,000 per year. Our Stony Brook average award is about $500. There is limited funding for these awards. So that goes back to when we mentioned that priority deadline of February 15th. So you want to make sure you get your FAFSA on file so that if you are eligible for SEOG, this is a grant, that you will receive those funds. If you file after that date, there's no guarantee that you would get this grant, even if you are financially eligible. Okay, that's why you want to watch the deadline. Okay, so applying for New York State Aid. The New York State Aid you can apply for on hesc.ny.gov. You can also possibly link it to your FAFSA application. So when you complete the FAFSA, it will ask if you want to link your data to a TAP application and kind of just keep filling it out from there. This is for New York State TAP and other New York State awards. You must be a New York State resident. You have to complete your TAP application. After that, you might be eligible to complete the Excelsior Scholarship application. But again, keep in mind the first step is doing that TAP application and making sure that's on file. If you're eligible, you'll have to sign a contract with New York State. And in that contract, it says that you must earn your degree within 4 years. You must complete 30 credits each academic year. And that's for the amount of time that you receive this award. So if you receive Excelsior for, say, 4 years, then you're required to file a New York State income tax in New York. Okay, so that's the stipulation of this award. If you don't meet that criteria, if you decide not to stay in New York after you receive this Excelsior Scholarship, the awards that you received will turn into an unsubsidized Stafford loan. Okay, so that's the stipulation of Excelsior. Another thing is that it can only be applied towards tuition. So all federal, state, university, and external awards must first pay towards tuition only, not fees, just tuition. And if there's any balance remaining, then your Excelsior award would pick up that difference. Okay, so just keep that in mind. A lot of times people will think, if they get a full Pell Award and a full TAP award, that they will also get Excelsior on top of that. And that is not the way that it works. Okay, so you just want to be in contact with your school. There's also several New York State scholarships. So there's the World Trade Center Memorial Scholarship, which is full tuition and room and board. The New York State Math and Science Teaching Initiative Scholarship, which is full tuition. Academic Excellence Scholarship, which is anywhere from $500 to $1,500 per year. And the STEM Incentive Program, which is full tuition. A stipulation of all of these is that your TAP application must be completed. So make sure that you do that to be able to move on and apply for other awards. So there's special programs that you can apply for, but it would be the EOP program, which you would have to indicate on your admission application. And also there's the honors program. So just keep that in mind when you're applying to Stony Brook. For the EOP program, there is some family income guidelines that must be met in order to be admitted to the program directly. And you must be an incoming freshman during your application process to be admitted. So the cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance for a student, it includes a student's billable direct costs, so what you'll actually see on your bill when you start attending, and non-billable costs, which are costs that you're not directly billed for, but you will still have to pay for in some way, right? So direct costs are your tuition, fees, room, if you live on campus, and a meal plan, if you live on campus or if you get a commuter meal plan. So that is what you would see on your bill. Indirect costs include books, transportation to and from the university, and personal expenses. So although you're not directly billed for these indirect costs, they're put into your cost of attendance so that you have an idea of what it will actually cost you to attend. So you can see here, these are our 2021 costs listed here. So you see For New York State resident, you see the direct cost. And if you go down, you can see the indirect cost. Okay, so you see that difference there. So indirect cost for New York State resident, $27.68. And this is all published on our website as well, so you can take a look. But that's the difference between the direct cost and indirect cost. So award packaging information, it may include any federal grants, whether it's Pell, SEOG, any kind of work study, direct loans, which would be subsidized, unsubsidized, state grants, which would be TAP and state scholarships, and any kind of institutional grants, which would be athletic aid, academic scholarships, or campus grants. And keep in mind that award packages may include aid estimates depending on where you are in the process. So if you didn't complete your New York State application, you might get an estimated TAP award on there, but that doesn't mean that it's finalized until you actually do that application. So just make sure that you read your award package very thoroughly. Okay, so you also want to make sure that you evaluate the awards that make up your award package. You want to see your value of your grants and scholarships. You also want to take a look at the terms and conditions of any institutional aid that is being offered to you. Looking at any kind of self-help funding, so you look at what your loan amounts are, what you would be borrowing for your entire time if you decided to attend there. So there's also federal loan calculators so that you can understand what your repayment will look like after graduation. So you can use, like the first year as a baseline and kind of go from there to see what your monthly payment would be. And we can also help you with that if you decided to, take out loans when you attended here. You also want to look at the direct costs because those will vary from school to school. And look at, difference between commuting versus living on campus. So it's really when you're looking at your award packages, you want to be able to compare apples to apples when you really break it down there. So some schools will list, larger loan options that will cover your cost of attendance, but keep in mind that's also a loan option versus, paying out of pocket. So you really just want to make sure you look at your packages and compare them, on the same playing field. So ways to fill the gap are personal payments, payment plan options through your university, any kind of 529 savings plans, Parent Plus loans, private loans, any kind of employer benefits from parents, and outside scholarships. So in here I have listed some tips from our financial aid advisors that they have seen, over the years. So when filing the FAFSA, if you're lost on a question, there's a question icon, and that will tell you exactly how to get the number that you need inputted on there. You want to also have your parents' tax information accessible, both their federal and New York State. Also, when you're creating your user ID, your FSA and password, you want to make sure that you show your typing. One of the biggest errors is that if you type something, you thought that was your password, but you actually hit the wrong button. So you just want to make sure you have the correct password, the correct login, and you save that somewhere in your phone, or you write it down in a safe place. An email or a cell phone number can only be used to create one FSA ID. So that's going back to how we talked to, the parent and the student separate IDs. And it's also suggested that a parent answers their own challenge questions and a student answers theirs. So there's no, confusion in the future. Those are just some tips from some financial aid advisors. That's the end of the presentation.
Well, we have a lot of questions, so we can go ahead and get started with some that are really helpful for the general public to know. One of the first ones was, what's an IRA? Can you just explain between 529 IRAs, what should and shouldn't be included when you're filling out your FAFSA, your TAP, or including in your EFC?
So an IRA is an individual retirement account, and that's not counted when you file a FAFSA. When you go through the FAFSA application, it will list what you are supposed to include on there as well.
And then we have a lot of students asking about timelines. So if let's say they applied for FAFSA and for admissions, which you have to do both. You can't just apply for financial aid and expect the admissions office to know you want to come to our university. So if they did their FAFSA in October and are already admitted or will be admitted in the next month or so, when do you think that they'll hear back about their financial aid package and about scholarships?
Late March.
So late March for both?
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you asking, because a lot of you are, scholarships and financial aid packages, regardless of when you're admitted, for the fall of 2021 will be out in sometime in late March. So there will be a gap in time here where you're admitted to the university, but don't quite know what that financial aid package is. Now, when does an EOP applicant submit their FAFSA and family income information?
So you want to do that earlier, right? So you want to file the FAFSA around this time, and then with the application process, they're going to ask you for your income information at that point. So I want to say that's probably early January. You want to have all your paperwork together for EOP.
Yes, as the EOP coordinator, I'll let you know that first we review you for academic eligibility, and only the students who are deemed to be academically eligible are sent our own Stony Brook financial information inquiry form, where it asks you and your parents to fill out a whole bunch of information and supply tax returns and W-2s. And that process can take some time, and it usually occurs anywhere between late December and February through February. And then we determine if you are economically eligible for EOP as well. So make sure, like she said, have all of your documents ready to go. That way, if we do ask you to fill out these forms, you can go ahead and do so at a quicker pace. So for students that their parents' employment status changed, their income has changed dramatically throughout this year, and it looks a little bit different compared to what they're putting on their FAFSA, what can be done and how does Stony Brook take this into account?
Sure. So a student that's experiencing that will want to complete our request for reevaluation. And what that process does is that allows us to update your FAFSA to reflect your current financial situation, not what was happening in 2019. So once you get your financial aid award, you'll want to contact our office. It will be done after May 1st, though. So keep that in mind. This reevaluation process will occur after you have to make your decision, but we can always go over estimated amounts for you to make your decision, but nothing will be finalized until after May 1st.
And there's some questions in the Q&A and the chat. A reminder, please put your questions in the Q&A feature, not the chat feature. All the questions should be going into the Q&A so our team of staff can assist you in answering those if they're not answered live. But for those of you who are wondering about Excelsior and when that typically becomes available, the application, Daniela, do we have any indication as to when it will be open this year?
So this year, no, not specifically, but typically it's open in the summer. So you'll see it around July. That's our typical timeline for Excelsior. So once we know more, we'll let you know. You can always let us know that you're interested. We'll update you when we update our website as well. But right now, we're just waiting on guidance from New York State on those specifics.
Yeah. And can you talk about a CSS profile and whether or not we need one?
We do not need a CSS profile, but some universities do require it for awarding their scholarships. So you want to make sure that you know the schools that do require one and provide them with the information and details that they need to make a scholarship determination.
So there's some rumors and some, a game of telephone that happens. So when you fill out your FAFSA, if you're a New York State resident, some people assume that they're doing their TAP as well because it kind of integrates. Can you just talk about that process a little bit?
Sure. So everyone will get the option. Well, not everybody. If you're a New York State resident, you'll get the option to transfer some data to begin your New York State TAP application after you file FAFSA. Okay, so that's a feature on there. If you choose to do so, you have to make sure that you still complete that full application. Just filing the FAFSA alone will not complete your TAP application. There's a lot of confusion with that, even for our continuing students, because you do have to do these applications every single year. So you just want to make sure that you know that when you submit that New York State TAP application, it's going to ask you for New York State income. Okay, so that's how you're going to know that you're doing that application besides being on that specific portal there.
A lot of questions about Excelsior, so we answered those. And what kind of scholarships are offered at Stony Brook for freshman students?
Sure, yep. So all students are reviewed for scholarships here. Depending, they can range, depending on, the student's record. So it really depends. There's a holistic approach that's done when awarding scholarships here. So it's not just a specific grade, or test score or anything like that. So it's not like we use a chart and just determine what you're going to receive, but we review your overall record, and you can get a grant or you can get a scholarship. So we have some that are full tuition awards, and then we have others that are partial tuition awards as well. So, it does vary.
And do our honors programs or specific programs give out scholarships on their own, or is it all just merit based?
So it's all merit based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of you asking, there's no specific questions, specific scholarships for those honors program students. So if you do get into an honors program, it's an academic honors program. It does not have a financial aid award. However, a lot of honors students are meeting a higher educational criteria that may give them admissions consideration, but it doesn't guarantee a scholarship. For low income students, do you think it's inevitable to have to receive and use loans at Stony Brook?
I mean, if it really depends, it depends on your circumstance. So are you commuting? Are you living on campus? So that really goes into consideration. But students that receive full Pell Grants and full TAP awards, typically their tuition is covered. It's really that room and board component that they'd have to make up elsewhere. And also, if they receive a scholarship from Stony Brook. So it's on an individual level.
If a student doesn't qualify for TAP or they don't think that they do, should they still create a TAP account and submit that application?
Absolutely. Yes. It's always good to have the application on file. And also, as we discussed, there are so many different New York State awards, and they all stem from that TAP application. You want to make sure you have it on file because if something changes with your income mid-year, you have that TAP application on file. And that's always good to have.
Okay, a lot of questions about the 529 again. So again, mimicking Daniela's response, we do not, the 529 is not reported on the FAFSA, correct?
That I have to get back to you on. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, the IRAs are not on the FAFSA.
Okay, so for those of you asking about the 529, should they email and get their answer or check your website?
Hold on. Let's see. So the 529s are typically reported to whoever owns the account, right? So it is listed as an asset. So it's not a specific item line there, but it is an asset and it's for whoever owns the account, right? So if it's the student's account, then it's reported under the student.
So there's a couple questions for admissions here. So how do you get admitted? Essentially, you need to apply to the university. If you just Google SBU admissions, it'll take you to discovering all that there is to know about Stony Brook, what academics we offer. We have over 200 different academic programs for you to choose from. And it also explains the different ways to apply depending on if you're a freshman or transfer or international student. Typically, we're talking to a lot of freshmen tonight, so I'll gear my answer towards freshmen, where you would submit your application, which can be a SUNY application, a common application, or a coalition application. We have no preference to either one that you use to apply for admission. After you apply, you would submit your high school transcript, your letter of recommendation. Your essay is included in your application. There are no additional essays for admissions purposes. If you select any honors programs, there will be an additional essay that you'll submit after you apply for honors selection or honors consideration, I should say. If the admissions committee that is reviewing your application and all of your admissions materials think that you'll be a great addition to Stony Brook and you'll be able to succeed not just in our classes, but also in our campus in a multitude of different ways, the university will offer admission. And that will typically, so for students applying for next fall, We've already been receiving applications for months at this point. Our priority deadline is not until February 1st. So you have plenty of time to apply to Stony Brook if you are looking to come next fall. We will get out admissions offers anywhere between now and April 1st, with the bulk of our decisions coming out between January through February. And then academic requirements for EOP students, it's typically around an 82 GPA or higher. Algebra 2 trigonometry by the time you graduate high school as a math level. We want to see that you're going to be able to succeed with the EOP academic support services. So it's typically right below general admission standards. So anywhere between like an 82 and a 92, I would say, is where the middle 50% of our EOP class lies. What are the requirements for work study and how do they apply?
Sure. So on the FAFSA application, there is a question that asks if you are interested in federal work study. So in order to be eligible, you have to answer yes to that question. And you want to have your FAFSA on file prior to February 15th, that deadline, because we do have limited funding. So it is awarded based on need. So the students, depending on their expected family contribution, it's awarded based on need and based on when you file the FAFSA application. Also, just to follow up, I just wanted to double check. Going back to the 529s, it is correct as a parent asset. It is reported a 529 plan.
Awesome. If a student or parent did not use the IRS retrieval tool when filling the FAFSA because it didn't work, which happens every once in a while, but they completed their FAFSA by answering all the questions, will Stony Brook ask for further questions, or will they be selected for verification later on?
So by not using the data retrieval, it does not automatically mean that you'll be selected for verification. That's not something that they'll pick up and question. However, we might just have to ask for tax information. If you were selected by the FAFSA processor, we would have to ask for that tax information. Whereas if you use data retrieval, we wouldn't have to. So the only difference is just getting that document from you.
Okay. And a couple of our attendees are still asking about just the reevaluation application. Is it typically around May 1st or after that they can submit that? And what are they typically submitting?
So it's going to be after May 1st. May 1st is when you should contact our office and let us know that you did have a change in income. Depending on what, if it's an income, a job loss, you would have to give our form an explanation of when the job loss occurred. We would need some tax information and current income values in order to move forward. So it is a little detailed of a process. And, we also need asset information as well, any kind of unemployment benefits, but that's something that we would deal with, again, after May 1st. Typically, we started in July. So it is a bit later in the cycle when we do those reevaluations, because it'll be based on income as of July 1st of 2021, because we're looking at income July 1st, 2021 through the end of the next school year. So we cannot process prior to that, but we can have discussions about what would be needed, or, again, estimated amounts if you needed that information.
Are there any scholarships at Stony Brook for room and board?
So any scholarship that you get from Stony Brook can be applied to room and board. So any award that you get can go to room and board. However, tuition is always a priority to be paid. So, if you had other outside scholarships that were only towards tuition, we would take those scholarships, apply them to your tuition, and then your Stony Brook grants could be applied to other charges.
And what are typical merit-based scholarships? What are the range of of how much we offer?
So there's anywhere from, it could be $1,000 up to full tuition. So there's not really a typical award. Again, it depends on the student.
Yeah, and remember, everybody, Stony Brook is already an affordable option for you. Our tuition is only $7,070 per year for New York State residents. It creeps up a little bit higher for our out-of-state residents. So the scholarships may vary if you live in New York State or if you live outside of New York State. But remember that Stony Brook is already a public university, already super affordable for our students. And we try to do our best to make it even more affordable if we can. Let's see here. How can I apply for TAP? So again, can you just answer how a student applies for TAP?
Yeah, sure. So you can either do that by creating a login on the New York State website and doing the application through there, or you can link it after your FAFSA, but you'll still have to create a HESC login and password to do so.
And all students in New York State and New York City are eligible to file for TAP. So anybody in the state of New York, anywhere within its boundaries is eligible to apply. But since there's only one college that a student can apply for on their TAP, how do they add more? What do they do in that case?
So when you determine where you're going to attend, then after May 1st, you go in and change your school code so that the school you're attending will get your information for your TAP award.
Let's see. Will SAT scores impact scholarships?
So this year, no, because we're going a holistic approach this year with scholarships. So we're really looking at the entire record of a student.
You guys have a lot of awesome questions. There are a lot of questions in the Q&A, and we will likely not get to all of them. We're doing our best to answer you live and through the Q&A portion, but remember that you can always ask us at a later time at fineaid@stonybrook.edu if we don't get to you, or if there's a lot of specific questions in the chat that are just particular to you, in which case it may be better suited to shoot us an email at fineaid@stonybrook.edu. Let's see. If your student applied to Stony Brook University but has not received an admissions decision yet, it's not unusual. We just started this process. And as I mentioned, our priority deadline is not until February 1st. So we're working hard to read our applications. We do receive around 40,000 applications every year. So it can take us a little bit of time to holistically review each student, but rest assured, we will get to you. Our application notification deadline is April 1st. So we promise to get you an admissions decision by April 1st, but the bulk of our decisions really come out in January or February. So it should be coming soon. Just hang steady and make sure you're checking your applicant portal to see if there's anything else that we need in order to complete your application.
So I see a question in here asking about the federal Stafford loans. What's the difference between a subsidized and unsubsidized? So the subsidized loan is the better of the two because the loan does not accrue interest while the student is in school, whereas the unsubsidized loan does accrue interest while the student is in school. So for a freshman, the allocation will typically be $3,500 in the subsidized portion and $2,000 in the unsubsidized. So it'll be $5,500 for the year.
Okay. If a student filled out their FAFSA and TAP and applied through Common App for admissions, what's next? Hang tight. I mean, that's the best response I think either of us can give you, right, at this point, is hang tight, because Daniela, does everyone who ever applies to Stony Brook get a financial aid package?
If you were admitted and have FAFSA, yes.
There it is. So you have to be admitted to Stony Brook. Like I said, 40,000 applications. We can't possibly put together financial aid packages for all 40,000 students that apply for a semester, especially when we're only bringing in around 3,500 freshmen. So you have to be admitted to the university before financial aid will begin putting a package together for you. So hang tight for that admissions offer first, and then financial aid by late March will start to get out those financial aid packages.
And someone also asked about having two students attend college at the same time. So yes, the FAFSA does take that into consideration. They take into consideration the number in your household as well as the number that are attending college. Okay, so that's determined in that federal methodology there.
Yes. Let's see. Do you see any other questions in the chat that are?
Let's see. I'm scrolling through.
And remember, everybody, this is being recorded. So if you want to come back and review any of this information, you absolutely can by probably tomorrow afternoon or the following day. It will be up on our YouTube. I just went ahead and put the link in the chat for you to bookmark for later on. You can share it with anybody else interested in Stony Brook or who wasn't able to attend tonight. If you know of anyone, feel free to utilize that because we are recording. We wanted this to be around for you all at a later time. And again, if you have any specific questions or we don't get to your questions tonight, please feel free to email us at fineaid@stonybrook.edu.
And the FAFSA will not take into consideration outstanding debts. For someone had asked that question as well.
Let's see. So if a student applies for FAFSA and they say they want to be a commuter student, they want to travel to our campus, and now or after they're admitted, they decide that they want to live on campus, what should they do in that case?
So what they would have to do is update their FAFSA to indicate that they're going to be living on campus. That'll give them a different cost of attendance, obviously, than living at home. And then we would make adjustments accordingly when we got that updated FAFSA.
Are there any scholarships for community service?
So on our website, we do have scholarships that are listed that require an additional application. They will be, again, most likely after May 1st for most of them. They'll have deadlines of, I'm trying to think, usually like July 1st, August 30th. So once you're admitted, you can go through and see our scholarships on there and see if you're eligible for. A lot of them are based on leadership, so community service would go hand in hand with that.
If a student meets the guidelines for Excelsior, is it guaranteed that they receive the Excelsior? And how many students at Stony Brook utilize that Excelsior scholarship?
So it's not guaranteed that a student will get it if they're eligible because it depends on the other awards that they're receiving. So if you're eligible and you sign your contract, we'll get notification that you have eligibility. We'll review to see if you have your financial eligibility based on your other awards, and we would let you know from there. But it does depend on what else you're receiving. So it's hard to say definitively. And then I know there was a second part to that question, but
how many students at Stony Brook do you think around about are utilizing the Excelsior?
That I'm not totally sure. I don't have a specific number on that. We can, always get back to you on that number.
What's the mix of an aid package? When you issue a financial aid package to a student, what will it outline?
So the financial aid package, so every student that files a FAFSA is going to be eligible for federal Stafford loans, regardless of income, whether it's, a portion is subsidized, not accruing interest, or it's fully unsubsidized, accruing interest while you're in school. Every student will get a Stafford loan eligibility on their financial aid award notice. And from there, the other mix of awards would be any kind of grants, federal Pell grants, federal grants, or any kind of institutional awards as well. That's what you can expect to see on there. Or there's also, athletic grants for any athletes.
So we had a question, were the fees for Stony Brook University shown in your presentation per year or per semester? I think it was per year.
So I think everything was per year. Let me just pull it up and double check. Per year, yep.
Per year. And just a tip from me to you, to all of you out there, when a school is quite expensive or a little bit more than a public university like Stony Brook, because we're so affordable, toot toot, we can toot our own horn, right? When they're a little bit pricier, they'll tend to tell you a per semester charge. It's less of a hit if the number is lower. So they'll tell you, oh, it's only $7,000 per semester, whereas we're $7,000 per year. So if a school is affordable, we'll tell you the year cost. We don't bill students per year. We bill twice a year per semester, as it's called. So just a little tip from me to you when you're going out and seeing all these different presentations from a bunch of different schools that you're interested in. Let's see. Are there any special scholarships for children that have IEPs or 504 plans?
Not specifically, no.
However, for students that do have IEPs, it's important to note that we have the Student Accessibility Support Center, lovingly known as SASSY, that's the acronym. And what they do is they assist students with any housing or academic accommodations that a student may be entitled to. So if admitted to the university, a student can go ahead and submit medical documentation and an application to SASSY. And SASSY, which is the Student Accessibility Support Center, will assist the student in seeing if those accommodations that they're requesting can be met, whether it be housing or academic. And they also assist students with temporary disability. So if a student becomes pregnant or they break their arm or they have had an asthma attack, something along those lines where there's prolonged sort of accommodations that need to be met, maybe leaving class early or extra time to get to a class, they assist with those temporary accommodations as well for our students.
Someone asked if they submitted a FAFSA originally in October, but then made some updates. Will that impact how much money they receive? I mean, it shouldn't. If you only added schools and all the income stayed the same, then no, it wouldn't impact you in that way. But if you made an adjustment to your income and you had a change in your expected family contribution, then we're going to be taking the most recent information to give you your award package.
And if a student fills out their FAFSA this year, do they need to do it next year if they're going to the college that they're attending?
Every year it has to be done. Yep, so each year.
So every single year for you guys, you need to fill out a FAFSA. So someone doesn't see where to change the school code for TAP. You'd have to log back into your TAP application to see that. Let's see. Again, the CSS profile is not used at SUNY. Often it's for private colleges. So we don't use the CSS profile at Stony Brook University. Are there any scholarships for Phi Theta Kappa members?
So I believe that is through admissions.
Yeah, so this is new this year, and I think we're putting together some sort of scholarship. They're in the works of discussing that for Phi Theta Kappa, so keep an eye out. But you'll hear if you qualify for that. When do students get their final fees for the year? Like, when does the bill come? When does that sort of thing happen?
So that will be late June, early July. So it depends on when the SUNY board sets the tuition for the year. Typically, your first payment will be due mid-August. So it's usually August 15th for the monthly payment plan option.
There's a student asking about, and I'll answer this one, for demonstrated interest. And this is a new term that's being bounced around the college exploration process this year, especially because a lot of schools are test optional. Do we keep track of demonstrated interest? If so, what do you consider demonstrated interest? And that's a good question. While it's not a huge portion of our review of candidates, if a student has taken the time to, I don't know, maybe attend a Making College Affordable for All presentation or an information session, or took a virtual tour of our campus, or whatever it may be, that all gets logged into your application file. Even before you apply, we have a little file for any students that are semi-interested in Stony Brook. So we see every time you take time out of your busy lives to learn more about Stony Brook, including an event like tonight, which is why you all took the time to register for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight is a way to demonstrate interest in Stony Brook. So we definitely do take a look at that for admissions purposes. Like I said, it's not a huge portion, but it always looks better to us if you've taken the time to learn more. Okay, so for transfer students, does financial aid and the FAFSA process work a little bit differently?
So if you're transferring in, let's say for spring of 2021, then you would be doing this year's FAFSA application. It would be the 2020-2021 FAFSA. And that would give you financial aid eligibility for spring of 21. So that's what you would want to do, and we'd get that information and move forward. from there. And you should get if you do that, you should get your award package pretty quickly. If you haven't filed the FAFSA and been admitted, all that stuff, you'll get it very quickly since the spring semester is approaching.
And what about for the fall?
Then for the fall, you have to do the 2021, 2022 application. So you should, if you're going to be doing the applications, I would suggest doing them both at the same time. I know it uses 2 different income years, but this way you're done with the applications that you'll need to complete.
Let's see. Does Stony Brook have tuition freeze?
No.
No, there's no tuition freeze at Stony Brook. Let's see. When you get a financial aid package, how many semesters does it cover, or is it 4?
So your financial aid awarded will be for the year, so it'll be for fall and spring. If you attend for the summer, you can get summer financial aid as well if you're half-time, but that would come separately.
And will the financial aid award letter be sent through the mail? Will it be emailed, or will it be in their solar portal?
It'll be emailed and through the solar portal.
Yeah, so we're not gonna mail you a financial aid package. That was changed a few years ago. So now you're gonna be emailed and it's in your solar portal if you're admitted to the university. Let's see. What are the codes for FAFSA and TAP? Not that students need to use it, they can always search it, but what are the codes for FAFSA and TAP?
Sure, so our FAFSA is 002838 and TAP is 0875.
So 002838, and what was TAP again?
0875.
0875, perfect.
Someone also asked about what do I owe for spring. Those bills are not out yet, so that's why you don't see it.
So there's a lot of questions about specific scholarships. All of that information of scholarships that we offer to our students is on the financial aid website. If you just Google SBU scholarships, you will get taken there. It will tell you who's qualified, what level of student, if it's for freshmen, if it's for upper level students, and what it's for. But for these really specific scholarships, like for a student who has a parent with a terminal illness or a parent who's a veteran, what do you suggest these students going out and searching for scholarships?
Well, I would check with, local organizations or anything that they're involved in on that end to see if they offer any external awards, or just really applying through a trusted website as well.
Yeah, and we mentioned those trusted websites prior to, but can you just state them one more time?
So I don't think we went over examples of them. We were just going with like outside organizations. We don't really provide any suggestions for websites, just anything that you could see as a valid website. We also will post some on our social media page. So we vet through a lot of external scholarships because a lot of donors will reach out to us to post it on our website to get Stony Brook students to award them funding. So check our social media pages as well, and we would let you know, if it's on our page, that it's a valid site, and we do update it weekly.
Are there any scholarships for students whose parents are alumni or who are quote unquote legacies at Stony Brook?
Not specifically. I don't think we have an application specific to that.
No. So at a public university, and we get this question at admissions a lot, my parent went there or my sister or brother went there. Does that give me any sort of help in the admissions process? And fortunately and unfortunately, depending on the student, we're a public university. So everyone who applies get the same consideration, regardless of who has attended prior in your family. So we give everyone the same holistic review. So there's no legacy kind of perk. Usually you find that in private schools down south, those really big private institutions. We have time for maybe one more question. Are there any that you're finding that, let's see.
I think there's a few that are specific to people's circumstances, so those should definitely send specific emails to our email box. You know, with specific EFCs and stuff like that, we can discuss that.
And again, that's FINAID, FINAID. I put it in the chat, FINAID@stonybrook.edu.
Yep.
You can ask your questions there. If you have any questions about admissions, so some of you have been asking about EOP or admissions, or when do I hear back about my admissions decision, or anything having to do with honors programs, you can email the admissions office at enroll, ENROLL, @stonybrook.edu, and we would be happy to answer those questions. So we're here for you. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Daniela. We can't thank you enough in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions for assisting us with this program and tonight.
Yeah.
We hope we answered a lot of your questions. I do see that there are still a lot of questions in the Q&A that have not been answered, so we do apologize about that, but we want to be mindful of everyone's time. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and make sure to email us if you still have questions. We're here for you. It does not end right now. So we will continue to be here for you for however long you need. Whatever questions, send our way. And thank you so much for joining. Happy holidays, everybody, and have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.